Thanks, Minister. Minister, could I start by going back to the October meeting first? There's a few things that I'd like to get your thoughts on. When we look at the agreed document, chapter or paragraph 11, it's to do with the EIB and potential projects, this task force being set up. The chapter says that the Commission agrees with the need to focus on key sectors with EU added value to boost competitiveness and growth, noticeably in research and innovation, digital economy, energy and transport infrastructure, social infrastructure, environment, and so on and so forth. Can I ask in real terms, are opportunities being explored for Ireland here? Do you see new projects coming online because of this? And could I ask you if the government is exploring whether or not the circa 15 billion that is needed for the water infrastructure might fall within this, and whether this might be an additional source of funding for some serious infrastructural upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of projects in Ireland. I suppose the best way to look at it is if you look at infrastructure. Investment is usually for infrastructure projects when it's done by governments. And if you look at it, you can divide infrastructure into social infrastructure and economic infrastructure. So the European Investment Bank already is very heavily involved in both. And they're funding, for example, bundles of schools through public-private partnership. They're funding the provision of Garda barracks and courthouses is another area where they're heavily involved. They're heavily involved in the funding of health centres. Now all those kind of are in the general parameters of social infrastructure. They're involved on the roads programme as well. And that would be the key area of investment for European Investment Bank funds over the last number of years. Now, if the Juncker proposal comes to fruition, and I hope it will, we would have quite a lot of projects that could be activated. I mean, we could immediately start asking the Roads Authority to complete the roads programme, because while a lot of work was done in the provision of motorways throughout the country, the roads network is not completed yet.
And just specific to, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry? Yeah.
It's just specific to the October EcoFin meeting.
Yes.
Does this new statement have any immediate implications for Ireland? Are there additional projects that might?
They're going to report in December.
Okay.
But it's up to individual countries to bring forward their own proposals then.
And are we doing that? Are we actively pushing?
I mean, the general statement by Juncker when he took over was, we're going to invest and get ready. But of course there'll be pan-European projects as well. I mean, one of the big European projects which needs to be funded, in my view, is a European energy network to kind of match the roads network across Europe. Because if you look at the dependency of Europe on outside sources of energy and the ineffectiveness of the distribution systems, it's one of the big weaknesses in the European economy, in my view.
Thank you. And as part of that, are we pushing, is any department pushing for Irish water infrastructure to be included?
No, but it could be included. I mean, if you got something like the proposal that has frequently been talked about but hasn't been advanced very much, but I hope Irish Water may advance it. If the solution to Dublin's water problem is a giant reservoir somewhere west of Dublin, maybe in the Bord na Móna properties west of Dublin, and that being fed by a pipeline from the Shannon. That would be the kind of project that would be suitable under certain circumstances for European Investment Bank funding.
Yeah, it seems to
but
me.
I don't know of any departmental work on that yet.
Okay, it seems to me that Chapter 11 opens that door even wider. Socio-economic, energy, infrastructure needed for economic growth, and so forth. Okay, Chair, I wonder, sorry, Minister, I wonder could we write to Minister Kelly and ask him as part of this, because this would be quite useful if the Minister is unaware, if Minister Kelly is aware whether or not his department or Irish Water is pushing Irish water projects. It seems EcoFin has opened the door to that. Thank you. Minister.
It's the Department of Public Expenditure that runs the capital programme.
Okay.
And they're also involved then with the PPPs as an extension to the public capital programme.
Thank you.
And they're in touch and in conversation with the other departments, including environment.
Okay.
Another area that's worth looking at, I mean, if the model is export-led growth, I believe we need investment at the ports. Certainly at the 4 or 5 key ports require investment. But if you kind of think, apart from the social infrastructure, what could get you extra growth in a country? What elements of infrastructure would get you extra growth? Well then, obviously water, obviously energy, obviously the ports.
Fibre.
And it's in those areas, you know. And I mean, I would welcome if the committee did some work on that and made some proposals. And we will take them seriously.
Thank you.
You know, at the end of the day, we all live in the same country. You know?
Thank you, Minister. Paragraph 10 talks about the EIB effectiveness. It seems to accept that the European Investment Bank isn't working terribly well. It's kind of scattered throughout the document. One of the things paragraph 10 talks about is concrete measures to boost investment, but specifically it's talking about the EIB and bottlenecks. Do you know of anything that might come out of this that will make it easier for Irish industry to access this money, or through PPPs or through any mechanisms? Is there anything that the Irish government has requested to be changed or improved to help funding in Ireland?
Well, the European Investment Bank has given us a lot of money, and in the last couple of years, their investment has more than doubled. I think in 2014 it's going to be about 600 million, and I think they envisage going to maybe 8. You know, and that's from that's very significant input. They did provide funds to both AIB and Bank of Ireland. I think it was around 250 million for SMEs. But while the country lacked confidence, there was a demand side problem on investment, and SMEs simply didn't avail of the facilities.
And sorry, the question is on the supply side. Is there anything that you are looking to have changed in the EIB mechanisms to make it easier for investment here?
I think it's the transmission mechanisms into Irish industry that are the issue, and the Strategic Investment Bank Fund, which we announced last Friday. The European Investment Bank is putting about 400 million in there, and the fund available now for 2015 is 800 million. And our intention is to carry that forward each year for 5 years. So there would be a total of about 4 billion available. And
you're not looking for any, just to the EcoFin meeting and to this discussion, you're not looking for any specific changes to have bottlenecks removed from the EIB, are you?
Well, I mean, we from our perspective, the EIB are very well disposed towards Ireland, and they have proved that by improving the flow of funds to Ireland. And they have various programs, and we're accessing those programs now more fruitfully than they were accessed in the past.
All right, thank you.
And they have projects, for example, where instead of the 50% matching funds in city regeneration now, where you're using a third-level college as the driver, you can get up to 60%. And we're looking at the potential of that in certain cities as well. Okay. The approval, the funding approval, or these, I just want to give you the figures. The EIB funding has steadily increased year on year since 2011. Funding approvals in 2011 were 525.
Yes, sorry to cut across you, just in the interest of time. I'd like to see that, but it's just it's not the question I was asking. So sorry to cut across you. Just there's other things I'd like to get to if I could.
I'm sure. It's difficult to deal with it if I can't answer.
What you're answering is what they've done. My question specifically was...
You're saying what's the result? I understood your question to be are the results, demonstrable results, arising from our extra engagement with the European Investment Bank?
No, my question was...
It has gone from 525 in 2011
that's not the question.
1.1 billion.
No, I appreciate that. No, I don't need another answer. The question was, are there any changes to the mechanisms as per what Ireland signed up to in October? If I could move on, the bank resolution contributions, I know the amount, the formula is under negotiation, and it'll be some formula that has a flat rate contribution and then a risk-assessed contribution, which will be relative to the size of the banks. On the basis that Ireland's banks are probably small by EU or by Eurozone standards, is there a risk that the Irish banks are going to have to pay relatively more because of this combination of a flat rate and a marginal rate than the European counterparts? Is there a risk the Irish banks will pay more for no additional insurance by paying into the fund in the way this is being worked through?
No, I don't think so. We've worked it out. It's fairly satisfactory. Does anybody get a note on that? No. Just we get you.
That's fine.
You need to illustrate the note.
All right. Okay. If you have another question that you could ask that. The fifth issue from the October meeting.
Yeah, I'm informed that we've kept the risk adjustment modest in our negotiation. It's between 0.8 and 1.5. So that acts as an equaliser and doesn't expose us to extensive additional risk along the lines you suggested.
It's the amount that the banks are going to have to pay in that I'm asking about, because obviously Irish consumers are going to have to.
But the risk of extra costs
is low. All right, sorry, thank you. Can I ask on energy taxation? There was discussion at the October meeting again on energy taxation within the context of climate change. Are there going to be implications to this for Irish businesses or domestic purchasers of energy? In other words, are taxes on energy in Ireland likely to go up?
No, but there's a proposal for a council directive amending the framework for the taxation of energy products and electricity. And the summary outcome of the discussion was that member states were evenly divided and had an exchange of views on whether work on the long-running energy tax file should continue or whether the proposal should be withdrawn and reconsidered. And that's where it stands. The proposal originally presented in 2011. Some elements continue to present problems for member states. Trying to bring the EU climate and energy policies into line from a tax perspective is obviously quite difficult, and we can provide a detailed note. If you want more information, we can give you a detailed note on that.
Thanks. Thank you, Minister. Final question. I'm being encouraged to finish up by the Chair. To this week's EcoFin meeting on the financial transactions tax, my understanding is that the tax would apply more to high frequency rather than low frequency trading, so derivatives markets, very high frequency stuff. My understanding is that the financial services industry in Ireland, based mainly out of the IFSC, from talking to them, is mainly low frequency financial transactions. So it's not high frequency marginal trading, it's fairly calm, low frequency asset management and so forth. So I'm not convinced. I have to say, I don't share the Department of Finance's view on this, and I know we've had very strong briefings from the Department before, but I think what we are missing is codified analysis. It does seem to be anecdotes. I've listened to the Finance Department briefings before. I don't buy them. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I don't accept that the Department has this one right. Maybe they do. So can I ask you two questions to finish? One is, could we get some documentation, like a formal position with some real numbers, rather than, to me, what seems to be quite anecdotal? Question number one. And question number two, if it's, see, I don't accept that. I absolutely don't. I think that's I think that's just a ridiculous position. If there's no analysis possible without an agreement, then you can't take such a hostile position. You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways. You can't say we were absolutely opposed to something on the one hand, and when Parliament asks for analysis to back that up, maintain that, well, we can't do any analysis because we don't know what's going to happen.
You're misunderstanding our position. I have never taken a hostile position to a financial transaction tax.
Your department has.
As a matter of fact, well, no, the department hasn't either. When Ireland had the presidency a couple of years back, at my first meeting that I chaired of EcoFin, I put it on the agenda to allow those that wanted to move ahead and try to find agreement under enhanced cooperation rules. I allowed them to go ahead and do it. I could have kept it off the agenda because I had the control for 6 months.
I think that's reasonable.
Wasn't an act, but it wasn't an act of hostility.
Well, I tell you, I know you're busy.
It was an act of enablement.
I know you're a busy man, but if you wanted to look at the blacks of the last briefing we got, you weren't here, from one of your department, the position that she outlined was a clearly and overtly hostile position from Ireland's perspective, the department's perspective, to the FTT. I mean, it was absolutely unambiguous. And we've had this back and forth with the department before, where the department is saying, we are strongly opposed to an FTT because we believe a lot of jobs will migrate to the City of London. But we can't back that up because we've no idea what the proposal is. You cannot hold those two positions. So could I ask, and maybe it's just some scenario modelling, I mean, we do know the broad parameters. If Parliament, this committee, could have some codified analysis that goes beyond anecdotes. I'm not saying the department's wrong, but I'm saying we don't have the case, the codified case for it. So you might just consider whether or not a codified case could be developed. That's the question.
But, you know, when the debate started, there was all sorts of proposals being made about a financial transaction tax. But to be quite blunt about it, if they settle for a kind of stamp duty at 0.1%, it makes no difference to us at all, except that it takes our exchequer flow down from 200 to about 25. Which I'd be opposing it then, not because it would damage us, but because it would take away some of our tax base.
Well, which brings me to my last question, which is the second piece of this. If what you're saying is correct, I have no reason to believe it's not, then is it not worth considering, for the same reason that you believe a damaging version of it is worth considering? Maybe there's a serious competitive advantage to be had. So what you've just said, Minister, illustrates my point perfectly, which is what you've just said is, given a particular version of the FTT, actually it would benefit financial services in Ireland. Given a different version, it would disbenefit it, and therefore there would be migration of jobs from the FSC to the City of London. And what I'm asking is, given that, could you ask the department to maybe do some scenario modelling so we could take a look?
But I mean, we have an FTT. We have a 1% stamp duty on shares. The only other people that have are the UK at 0.5%. The French have been pushing to bring it in at 0.1, and the French are participating now in the FTT talks, and that's their proposal. And the proposals at the minute are going nowhere. I mean, that's the position.
That may be the position, but that doesn't detract from the question I'm asking, which is we see some codified analysis of the type of FTT that would benefit Ireland and disbenefit Ireland.
But I'm not interested in a FTT at present, because I
may not be, but we as the Finance Committee may be.
But I make policy. That's the difference.
You do make policy, but it is our constitutional obligation to hold you to account.
Right,
and part of that is requesting.
But that doesn't mean I have to agree with you. All I have to tell you is my positions that I'm doing, and until the electorate vote us out of offices and I'm removed as Finance Minister, I create policy.
Yeah, hang on, Chair.
Sorry, Deputy. Actually, I also, as Chairman, can decide how long people speak, and I've given you the maximum.
You have, and I appreciate that. But the Minister is
kind of going around a bit in circles here as to what you believe and what the Minister believes.
No, we're not.
And yes, we are.
No, we're not. We're not at all. No, we're not, Chair. If I could just...
I feel we are.
I'm not attempting in any way to direct policy. I'm asking,
I'll have to say to you,
as a member of the Finance Committee, if we could have a report to illustrate the options.
Minister, can we have a report or not?
Could we have some analysis? That's all I'm asking for.
We don't have such
I know. That's why I'm asking if one could be done.
And we have a lot of work to do in the department, and I don't think it's necessary to commission such a report at present. If, on the other hand, a group of people in Europe come up with a financial transaction tax, and it becomes policy across even a limited group of countries, it will be worth our while doing an analysis then. And then I'll do it.
That is preposterous.
Why?
Why
is it preposterous?
Because if you don't have any analysis, how can you decide whether or not, before the fact, you even want to engage with an FTT?
Well, I mean, I have I understand the position. I know what's going to happen. If there's a tax in Dublin that doesn't apply in London, it's self-evident.
Thank you, Mr.
No,
I'm
it's not.
stopping this discussion. It's gone on for 20 minutes. I'm stopping.
Thank you,
this
Chair.
discussion.